What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Basketball, this week presented by District of Buckets. First things first, if you won your game last week, comment down below. GG, easy dubs. Love to see it. If you lost your game last week, you're going to want to stick around for this episode. So if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, comment down below with any questions you have regarding basketball. We love to talk to our people. So let's roll the tape and get right into it. Once again, welcome back. Love to see you here. Got our co-host here, Carl. I'm Tyler Castle. We're going to talk to you guys about fantasy basketball this week. We got a lot in store, and we're going to change gears a little bit. We used to do a lot of other segments, but we're going to stick to what you guys like best, which is streamers, waiver wire guys, and buy low, sell high candidates. We'll throw in a little more information in there as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But we're going to get into some of the nitty and gritty of streaming strategy this week. All right. So there's at least one team that plays a back-to-back starting each day throughout the week. And if you play ESPN Standard, you get 7 matchup acquisitions per week. And so that means you're going to pick up, if you follow my advice, you're going to pick up a different guy with a back-to-back every week, because more times than not, the team that has more players playing is going to win their fantasy week. And obviously there's outstanding circumstances on that, but we're going to give you the best opportunity to win your fantasy basketball week. All right, starting off, Monday and Tuesday, back-to-backs. You have the Washington Wizards, Dallas, and Portland. The Washington Wizards you kind of need to look out for because Russell Westbrook will likely sit one of those back-to-backs. He did play his first back-to-back of the season not too long ago, and it worked out for him. Shout out the Wizards. They're going strong right now. 4 straight wins. Yep. How many games back?
Only about 3 games back now of the 8th seed in the East. And I think 3.5 of the 6.
They're gunning for them Nets, boy.
Yeah.
All right. And then Dallas, they play one. Portland plays one. Or they play back-to-back starting Monday. Yeah. Tuesday, Wednesday, back-to-backs. You have Atlanta, Boston, Cleveland, Detroit, Golden State, Minnesota, and Toronto. The one that sticks out to me there is Boston. Kemba Walker is most likely to sit one of those games, opening up minutes for Peyton Pritchard. Wednesday, Thursday, back-to-backs. There's only one, New Orleans Pelicans. Thursday, Friday, you have the Clippers, Memphis, and Sacramento. Friday, Saturday, you have Utah, Oklahoma City, and Indiana. Saturday, Sunday, you have Minnesota, the Knicks, and the Wizards. And then going into next week, which is kind of an advanced fantasy basketball strategy, is getting the back-to-backs from Sunday to Monday. And you have Charlotte, Chicago, and Houston. So those are the teams you need to be looking out for. Oh, I forgot to mention on the Friday, Saturday back-to-back, Al Horford is going to sit one of those. He does not play back-to-backs. He's a very old man. Actually, he's not that old. What draft class was he in?
Dude, let me look it up.
Yeah, while he's doing
Al 34. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely older guys than him. He just looks really old.
Yeah. Let's say he's only, yeah. Wow. He just looks like he's like pushing 40.
Yeah. But we're going to get right into the waiver wire pickups that you're going to need on your team. And these are the people you're going to pick up on these specific days. And after the back-to-back, you're going to drop them unless you want to lock them in on your roster. But I would recommend having 2 streaming spots on your team. And then you both pick 2 people up starting on Monday, and then you replace one of those guys on Tuesday, and then you ride out the back-to-backs. You stagger the back-to-backs for the rest of the week. And so that way you're going to maximize the amount of people you have playing on your team. So starting up with Monday pickups, there's a couple guys you can pick up. We talked about how the Wizards have a back-to-back. So you're going to be looking at people like Rui Hachimura. He's averaging 30 fantasy points per game in the last 7 days. Yep. Davis Bertans has been he's been splashing.
Except for he's been, last game was a bit inconsistent, but he went like 2 for 8 or 2 for 9, but he's still gonna have he's still getting it together. So that's a game that I wouldn't really put too much weight in.
Yep. And then Nato, he could be a streaming spot in deeper leagues, as he could end up getting a start in one of those back-to-backs in place of Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
You also have the Mavericks starting a back-to-back on Monday. You could pick up Dorian Finney-Smith. He's been playing so many minutes, and he's almost averaging 2 stocks, steals, and blocks per game in his last 5. So if you're in a category league and you're in need of steals and blocks, which is one of the things people are always looking out for, Dorian Finney-Smith is a good option for that. Another one for deeper leagues for the Mavs is Jalen Brunson. But those aren't the main guys we're looking at for Monday, Tuesday. We are looking at Gary Trent Jr. Every single week, we're looking at Gary Trent Jr. 3-point percentage, 3-pointers, field goals, points, those categories, he's going to shine.
And no CJ.
And no CJ still. So he's averaging almost 30 fantasy points per game in the last 7 days. That's a guy that we talk about literally almost every week.
Yeah.
Another Monday pickup. This guy just came back from injury. Derek Jones Jr. He's been playing very well, averaging 30 in the last 7 days. He's only owned in 6% of leagues. So this is for deeper leagues too. This could be a steal.
Yeah.
Could end up being a full-time ad depending on his playing time in Portland. I also wanted to shout out Robert Covington. He's been playing really well. He's owned in too many leagues to mention as a streamer spot, but he's been playing really well. Anything you want to add to the Monday pickups?
Trying to see Monday pickups. That was what back-to-backs do you have there?
We have Portland, we have Washington, and we have Dallas.
I guess I'd say for the Washington back-to-back with Rui Hachimura, as you mentioned earlier, is that he's definitely worth like a waiver spot, but also if you have holes in your roster, he's getting a bigger role within the team. He's kind of morphing into a bit of the player that they want him to be. Like they have him guarding 1 through 5, so a lot of times he's going to be there for a lot of those a lot of those contested rebounds. Because like Russell Westbrook right now is the current leading rebounder for the Washington Wizards. But then after that, there's just kind of a lot of opportunity there for whoever really wants to take it. And Rui will be taking a lot tougher defensive assignments, so he'll be around people that are taking more shots. So there's a chance his rebounds also can go along and rise with the way he's been playing. So I think that's a great pickup to make because he's just as I've established over the last couple episodes, I'm an opportunity guy, and his opportunity is growing game by game.
Yeah, it definitely is. If I were to nail in my 2 guys that I'm picking up on Monday, it is going to be both Gary Trent Jr. and Derek Jones Jr. That's my prerogative. But if you have confidence in another player or they have a good matchup, go after them. But I'm locking in. My Monday pickups are Gary Trent Jr. and Derek Jones Jr. On to Tuesday, the back-to-backs that start on Tuesday, I said, were Atlanta, Boston, Cleveland, Detroit, Golden State, Minnesota, and Toronto. So there's a lot of them there, but there's only a few people that are worthy of pickup spots on the waivers. So on Tuesday, I'm either going to drop Gary Trent or Derek Jones Jr., whichever one I just picked up. But I'm going to drop them for the next back-to-back. Let me back up. I don't know if I actually want to do that. On Monday, I pick up Gary Trent Jr. and Derek Jones Jr. If you wanted to, you could drop one of those people for the following. Cam Reddish on the Atlanta Hawks. He's playing 30 minutes per game right now, more than that actually, and averaging over 30 fantasy points per game in the last 7 days, playing exceptionally well. Robert Williams, he has astounding efficiency. When he plays very hard and he gets a ton of blocks, a ton of steals, and his field goal percentage is immaculate because they just throw the ball near the hoop and he puts it in. He got the nickname Lob Williams, and that's not for no reason. He's averaging 31 fantasy points per game over the last 7 days. Really good. And then LeBron's protege, C.D. Osman, has been starting in place of the injured Taurean Prince, and he has not been disappointing. So if you were wanting to pick up one of those guys, you drop Gary Trent Jr. or Derek Jones Jr. from the previous day. You don't have to do it, but if you have more confidence in any of those guys than the former, then go ahead. Following day, Wednesday pickups. You have the New Orleans Pelicans starting their back-to-back. Josh Hart and Willie Hernan-Gomez are pretty much the only options to stream from those guys. So there's a little wiggle room in your streaming strategy here. You might want to keep some of those guys that I mentioned before that are just going to play on Wednesday instead of Josh Hart and Willie Hernan-Gomez. But that's up to you. Willie Hernan-Gomez, the only reason I mentioned him is because Steven Adams is battling a right ankle injury. He's been questionable and sitting, kind of going on and off in the last couple of days. Before I move into Thursday, Carl, would you like to interject for any of this?
I'd say Chetty Osman will come with a warning sign because he's kind of one of those, like you mentioned. So LeBron's protege, he's that type of guy where, like he may or may not get his numbers. Like he'll help the team do well at best, like every single game. So, like there's chances that like you'll see, like you could see the team rolling, but his numbers may not, necessarily add up to what they've been. I still think he has the talent and the ability to keep it up, but he will do whatever it takes to get a dub. And so sometimes his personal numbers will suffer. So that's just a little warning sign on him, and that's pretty much all I have from those guys.
Yeah, and if it wasn't clear, these guys are just streaming options. So these are people that you should probably pick up for their back-to-back and then drop for the next back-to-back. So moving on into Thursday pickups, got a couple of back-to-backs there. One of them being the Clippers. You have Patrick Beverley and Marcus Morris Sr., who are viable options for the Clippers back-to-back. We could see Kawhi Leonard or PG sit one of those back-to-back games. It's not likely, but it is possible. Since Pat Beverley has returned from his injury earlier in the month, he's played very well. He's been putting up very good fantasy points. Moving on into the Grizzlies back-to-back, DeAnthony Melton has been thrusted into the starting lineup due to the plethora of injuries in Memphis. He's very strong in defensive categories. He's been averaging almost 2 stocks per game over the last 5 games when he's been starting. So definitely a viable option for streaming on the Memphis Grizzlies. And then lastly, for Thursday pickups, I have Marvin Bagley. Marvin Bagley is starting in place of Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn Holmes has been having some right knee soreness. And for some reason, the Kings don't want to play Hassan Whiteside. But that's to Marvin Bagley's benefit. He's been playing exceptionally well when he's been getting these starts. And it seems like he's earned that spot in place of Rashawn Holmes being out. So definitely look for Marvin Bagley. He's putting it together in his 3rd year. Feels good to see him do well, especially after his injury-riddled beginning to the NBA. Friday pickups. Starting on Friday, you got some of the Indiana players that are always popular for streaming options. To name a few, TJ McConnell. Some interesting news for him. He's coming off the bench now, but he's still a consistent 25 fantasy point per game guy, even when he does come off the bench. You also have Jeremy Lamb, who lost his starting spot to Doug McDermott. And another guy that's still worthy of 25 fantasy points a game. And then to mention a few more, Justin Holiday and Doug McBuckets. They are also viable streaming options. Another 25 fantasy points per game, which when you're averaging them out, it doesn't seem that great. But fantasy basketball, you don't win for averaging the most points per player. You win for having the most points, and that's why you get more people on the lineup every week. You're going to give yourself the best chance to win. And then my last Friday pickup is Isaiah Roby. He is likely to start one of the back-to-backs for OKC because, like I said before, old man Al is probably going to sit one of those out. He has been for the entirety of the year. So look for Isaiah Roby to get more usage than he usually does. Carl, before I head into the weekend pickups? Anything you want to say about those people?
I really covered those well. Don't really have anything extra on those.
Cool.
Weekend time.
All right, Saturday pickups. Nerlens Noel on the New York Knicks is a defensive fantasy lock. Absolutely own him if you need steals and blocks, especially blocks. He's so good.
And there's you have Mitchell Robinson's hand injury, so that's also a potential keeper for a couple weeks actually, because now it's like his tools I have it that his minutes increased drastically, and like since that injury, because he's the guy they have, so like he might be worth more than just a weekend stream.
Yeah, that's a great point. Mitchell Robinson is out for, I think, 6 weeks or something with a right hand injury, and he's only 1 week into that. So Nerlens Noel is a solid streaming option for the Knicks on Saturday. And then Emmanuel Quickly. He's bound to get playing time soon.
Yeah.
Knicks fans are begging for him to get playing time. I don't know if it'll happen this week, but he's averaging about 20 minutes per game, even with Derrick Rose entering the team. He's an offensive stud. There's no other way to put it. The guy knows how to put the ball in the bucket. And then once again, we have the Wizards players that you should be looking out for: Rui Hachimura, Davis Bertans, and Neto. Because Neto, only in deeper leagues, just because Westbrook might sit out one of those back-to-backs. Sunday pickups. So these are people that will play the starting back-to-back on Sunday, entering in on Monday, helping you get a good start to your next week. And if you follow this fantasy strategy of picking up the most back-to-backs as possible, it's going to help you a lot. And this Sunday to Monday is one of those things that's going to make your team that much better every single week. So Sunday pickups, you have Charlotte, Cody Zeller. He's a consistent 25 piece. That's 50 fantasy points for your team right there. Then you have the Bulls players. All the opportunity there from Lauri Markkanen being out, Otto Porter being out. You got Garrett Temple and Wendell Carter Jr. They're getting solid minutes for the Bulls right now. Lots of opportunity for them. Garrett Temple less than Wendell Carter Jr., but Garrett Temple also has probably the higher ceiling of those two people for that week. And then this is a guy that we're going to touch on a little bit later, or at least Carl is. Jayshawn Tate. Full-time roster spot.
Yeah.
He's playing like 40 minutes per game. He averages the most minutes per game for all of Houston, including John Wall, including Victor Oladipo. Even when Christian Wood is back, Jayshawn Tate still plays the most minutes out of everybody. So if he's not already rostered in your league, pick the man up. The dude's balling, especially if you're in a deeper league. He's not owned in that many leagues. So if he's not owned and you're in a 12-team league, full-time roster spot instantly. So those are your waiver wire pickups. And like I said before, you're going to start picking up 2 guys on Monday, hopefully, if you have those 2 streaming positions in your league. Pick up those 2 guys, and then start staggering every other. You pick up the next back-to-back, and that's going to maximize how many games you play in a week. If there's a guy like Jayshawn Tate available, that could mess up your streaming strategy just because he could be a must-add in your league. You never know. Carl, I know you don't necessarily have the streaming strategy, but you have guys that we should be looking at to pick up regardless that you wanted to touch on.
Just straight up buy low, sell high, or just waivers.
The waiver wire guys, yeah. We'll move into buy low.
Okay, so we mentioned 3 of my waiver wire guys just for potential long-term pickups. I'm going to start off with, we just talked about Jayshawn Tate, and we talked about his minutes. He's literally doing so much right now for this team, and they're not necessarily playing well, especially with Christian Wood out. And as you said, he's still going to have those, the highest minutes even when Christian Wood comes back. So I don't know what percentage he is. He's rostered in 20.1% of leagues. 20.1. That's unacceptable. And in the last week, He's
playing
playing
20 minutes a game, averaging 21.
yeah, 36.5 minutes in the last week of action. And he, as you said, he hovers around like 30. So he's at 27.2 for the season. And like just looking at this production over the last couple of weeks, like the minutes are there, the production is there. He does everything. There's like just a tiny little bit of everything for the Houston Rockets who need him. And again, I'm gonna keep saying it because I'm gonna drill it in everybody's head who's watching this. You see him available, go get him right now. Like you have to go get him. The Rockets have nobody else really on that roster that's gonna chop into his minutes at this point. That's my first one. Second one, we touched on this. We touched on everyone. Rui Hachimura as a potential long-term ad. He'd be a guy if you're comfortable, just having some sort of depth on your bench, not necessarily leaving a streaming spot open, but that's his role. Because he's also getting to the point where like his role in the Wizards is expanding, and then you see Westbrook and Beal finally meshing together. The whole team's playing a lot better. They're figuring some things out. And again, another opportunity guy where Rui was drafted where he was drafted for a reason. And he's shown it in flashes. And now the consistency is slowly coming together for him. And he's going to be a guy that's, basically, I'll say on a good day and on a bad Bertans shooting night, de facto third option, at least with the shots he's going to get that night. He's going to be one of the top rebounders for that team. He's defending everybody at this point. They don't have any other options if they're going to put on almost anybody who's like 6'5" and above. They don't have that many options of a guy that you really want to put on them defensively other than Rui. And while, it's not the best, it's, again, too much opportunity for anyone to pass up. And then with one more guy that we touched on this week, Nerlens Noel. That's pretty much self-explanatory at this point. Like they don't have Mitchell Robinson. Like he's playing all of the minutes at this point for centers in New York. Where let me look it up right now. His jump in minutes is pretty significant too. His jump in minutes, in comparison to his average. So his average is about 18.9 minutes a game, and in the last week he's got about 10 more, a little less than 10 more, 28.5. And 28.5, he's a capable shot blocker, plays defense really well. I mean, he's not going to score a whole bunch however, when he does score, high efficiency because it's right around the rim. So he's a guy that until we hear any other, injury news from Mitchell Robinson, like he should be sitting on somebody's roster. And then again, deep league guy, Saddiq Bey for deep leagues where, he's kind of the same thing where it's opportunity. You see that they're trying to move Blake Griffin now, and then they've had a bunch of roster turnover. They're definitely looking towards the youth of that team, and he's a big part of what they want to do in the future. So Saddiq Bey is a guy in deeper leagues that I think you should have on your roster right now.
Yeah, he's kind of hooping.
Yeah,
not necessarily in his last two, but definitely before that he was playing really well. But thanks for that, Carl. We got to move into buy low, sell high.
Let's go.
All right. I'll start. To start the buy low, we got Mike Conley. Mike Conley's coming off an injury, welcoming himself back to Utah. And this is going to play into the next talking point I have. But Mike Conley is a guy that when he's on the court, he has great production. He feels like he kind of got snubbed this year from the All-Star selection. But that's a guy that you're going to want on your team. So if you were brave enough to hold out on him and keep him stuck in that injury reserve spot during his 10-day absence, he's going to perform well for you. And if you don't have him on your team and you're looking for a buy low candidate, Mike Conley is a great option. I'll go with another buy low candidate right after that I wasn't going to talk about initially, but I'm going to talk about now. Christian Wood. You may think, how in the hell can Christian Wood be a buy low candidate putting up the numbers that he put up before his injury? Well, I'll tell you why. Boogie is not staying in Houston. And that leaves a lot of opportunity for Christian Wood. If Victor Oladipo continues to be injured, if John Wall is going to sit back-to-backs, then who's going to score other than Jayshawn Tate? It's Christian Wood. Christian Wood has been so good. He's actually nearing a return. He posted on his Instagram that he could come back before the All-Star break. I don't expect it to happen. But after the All-Star break, he's going to be healthy and ready to go. So I'm taking Christian Wood as maybe even a better buy low candidate than Mike Conley. Sell high candidates. Boogie, he's getting moved. He's getting out of Houston. So you're going to want to sell him high. We don't know where he's going to go. Maybe back to LA. That'd be kind of cool. But there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding DeMarcus Cousins right now. Another center that is facing a lot of uncertainty, Andre Drummond. He's currently sitting right now for the Cavs, and nobody knows where he's really going to go. There's a chance he might go to Toronto. If he does that, you'll see a significant decrease in minutes. And then there's a chance he goes to Boston. As a Boston fan, I don't really want Andre Drummond. He does really well in fantasy categories, but he does not contribute to wins on a basketball team. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about fantasy production. And the Celtics have a lot of centers. Daniel Tice, Robert Williams, Tristan Thompson. I don't expect him to continue to see the minutes he was seeing as a starter for the Cavs when he was playing. So I'm selling Andre Drummond high as well. And then my last sell high candidate, Jordan Clarkson. So Jordan Clarkson is potential sixth man of the year, likely sixth man of the year, but Conley is coming back, which means Clarkson's production is going to decrease, his opportunity is going to decrease, and that makes him a beautiful sell high candidate because he just came off of a career high.
Yeah, it's an absolute heater of last couple of weeks too, just unstoppable.
Yeah, so look to move Jordan Clarkson now while you can before he starts to see a decrease in minutes. I'm not saying that it's going to be a lot, but he's definitely a guy that you can get some return out of. So sell high, Boogie, Andre Drummond, Jordan Clarkson. Carl, who are your buy low and sell high candidates?
All right, buy low is a guy who still got, this is kind of a reevaluation for his injury, and he will probably be out at least through the All-Star break. But I'm saying CJ McCollum, if you can stash him for enough time. So we've seen the benefits of Gary Trent Jr. stepping in to that role with CJ out. And, as much as I love his game and he's shooting lights out, and CJ comes back healthy, his spot again. And he's that much better of a player on a team that, really proven that they found a way to win, but they need someone alongside Dame Lillard that, attracts more of that, just more of that pressure. They need him. And so the second he comes back, it's going to be, when he comes back healthy, like CJ McCollum will get right back to producing the way we know CJ McCollum will. And I'm saying right now is going to be the cheapest time to get him because you still have a little ways to wait for him to get healthy. Like if it's on the back end of him getting healthy, it's going to be hard, to have someone who's sat through and held him for this long to really want to give up on him. But right now it's like you haven't seen him play in a while. He's still got a little ways to go. This is the time to snipe him from somebody else. And if you snipe him from somebody else, like you're getting a really productive player at the lowest value I think he'll have probably all year. And also during this entire injury process, depending on how he looked when he gets reevaluated. But they said post All-Star break. And if you have to have either the IR spot or the bench spots to be able to hold him. But if you do, that's a move I'd make just to prepare yourself for the next part of your fantasy season. So that's my one buy low, just because I really felt that I really needed to, really emphasize the importance of potentially grabbing CJ McCollum. And then for sell high, one name that people aren't going to love me to hear again, I actually had him on sell high earlier because he's kind of been pretty volatile with his performances, is Scary Terry Rozier. Yes, I understand he's playing well. Yes, but the reason I say sell high is because you had Devontae Graham, who's been dealing with some issues, and a lot of what he's done over the past week or so that we've all loved, and it's amazing to see, is kind of it's just kind of a little bit outside of his normal production, and just a little too much to the point where I think, it's, if you can maybe trade him for someone like a superstar, or like maybe if I try to make a deal, he's a name that I would definitely bring up if I have him on my roster, because he tends to have like just random spurts of greatness in his seasons, and like you don't really know when that's going to win or lose you a matchup, when you can go out and get someone who's producing around that level, like either through trade or whatever, is producing at that level more consistently. And that's the reason why I have him on sell high. And then my second sell high is Kendrick Nunn from Miami Heat. Kendrick Nunn is getting it together this year. He's finally playing a bit like the Kendrick Nunn that we thought he would be at this point. But he's also a guy that minutes-wise, it's unrealistic for him to keep up this streak he's been on, because Goran Dragic is coming back. And Tyler and I talked before the show, and it said when Dragic comes back, generally Nunn's minutes just get evaporated, just almost instantly. So he's going to instantly have less opportunity to do what he does. It's nothing about ability, but it's all about opportunity, and that's why I think you should sell him up.
Yeah. I actually wanted to go back to Terry Rozier. Yeah. He's doing the same thing he did when he first became a big name, when he first earned the term Scary Terry. When he became a household name for basketball fans, the Celtics were without Kyrie, and he pounced on that opportunity, and he became a cold-blooded killer on the basketball court, and he puts the ball in the basket. It doesn't matter if you're in his face or not. And he's doing the exact same thing right now for the Hornets. He is getting more opportunity than he normally does with Devontae Graham being out, and he's capitalizing on it. But it doesn't last. And that was proven when the Hornets signed him the first year. He got a bag, and they were expecting him to be the guy that they could rely on and turn their franchise around, and he wasn't that guy, because he still needs help. But he's in this position right now as a sell high candidate because of this opportunity that he's been given, and he's been hitting game winners, and he takes the ball and he'll take the last shot. He'll ISO somebody when the shot clock is running down. He can be that dude. He just can't be that dude all season long. And so that makes him a perfect sell high candidate. He's getting an uptick in minutes. I forgot what you said earlier, but he's getting like 7 more minutes per game or something like that.
Actually, let me pull it up real quick. He's getting, he is getting, let's see, he's averaging 33.5 for the season, and in the last week it's at 39.5.
So he's getting a lot more minutes per game, and like I said, a lot more opportunity. So perfect sell high candidate. If you have him on your team, look to move him and get something in return out of him while you can. You want to talk about standout performances last week?
Oh yeah, you already know where I'm going first though.
Send it.
You already know. All right, so standout performances last week. I got to shout out Davis Bertans, the Latvian laser, for setting a career high, 9 threes, getting out of his slumps, been shooting pretty well. I mean, last game of him, but he's out of the slump now, I believe it. And just want to shout him out because it's, he's the key to the Wizards turning around. As if he's hitting shots, makes the game a lot easier for everybody else. I'd say any other shout outs I'd have, honestly, I'm keeping it Wizards. Rui Hachimura, who also is my waiver wire pickup, is also my shout out because he is rising to the challenge on defense. And that's where the Wizards have turned their season around so far, is on the defensive end, because at first, no matter what, you'd see games where 146, 145, every other game, and you're just like, you got to see when something's happening, when something's going to change. But Rui Hachimura has been a big reason why they've been able to actually lock up. They've given him more responsibility, and he's taken it, and he's just doing a great job. I don't know if he's ever going to see this, but shout out to you, Rui.
Man, you Wizards fans win 4 games in a row for the first time in 3 years. Yeah. Now you only want to talk about Wizards, guys.
Yeah.
I guess I'm like the opposite right now. The Celtics lose to the 3 worst teams in all of basketball, and I don't even want to say their name anymore. We miss you, Marcus Smart. We miss you, man. You're the heart and soul.
He is the glue.
He is the glue guy. All right, well, you got anything else you got to say, man?
Not really. Just wanted to thank everyone who's watching the show. I mean, we've grown quite a bit in the past couple months since we started this thing. Please comment, let us know how you're doing in your fantasy teams. Still check out the blog, the Twitter for District of Buckets to try to stay connected. Is again, my number one thing is talking basketball. It's more than just fantasy. So, any aspect of the game, any level of the game, that's really what District of Buckets is all about. And that's really all I got to say.
Yeah, definitely comment below any content that you'd like to see from us. We're open to suggestions, man. We want to make this a long-term thing. So thanks to everybody that has been sticking around with us to start us off. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And if you're here already, we really appreciate you. So if you aren't subscribed, like 80% of you are, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'd love to keep you around. Like the video, comment down below, anything, doesn't matter. We'd love to help you guys win your fantasy basketball season. So that's going to do it for this week, man. It's going to be a quick one. We're changing up the format a little bit. Let us know any suggestions. But we're trying to make it more concise for you guys, more strategical, talking more strategy, so that way you can win your week and less of like the kind of frivolous stuff, injury reports, standout performances. But yeah, we're doing it for you guys. So just let us know. This has been another edition of Fantasy Basketball This Week, presented by District of Buckets. Peace.